we were having of air. But I think perhaps maybe just speak to us about the report, the World Bank report itself, some of the key highlights from a Botswana perspective as far as the trends and opportunities are concerned, but also looking at some of those areas that have been highlighted as challenges for us as a country.
Okay, thank you very much. The report really highlights the fact that boys or young men are experiencing violence within families, within the school setting in terms of corporal punishment, and also their performance is not that well. It also shows the number of young men that are also dropping off universities, and we find ourselves with more female graduates in return. So I think this is the situation in which we find ourselves in as a country.
I think, and the reason I'm saying I wish the viewer would have been part of our off-air conversation, it's because I'm interested in finding this report paints sort of a gloomy, for lack of a better word, for the future of a boy child as it sees. But I'm interested in finding out, do we know how far back the report goes in terms of the period? Because what I was saying to you is it appears we may talk about the boy child being left out, the boy child this, but when you look at the other end of this conversation, it is the men that are in position of leadership wherever that you go. So I'm just trying to figure out where is the correlation. Do we know the period in which this study was conducted?
Yeah. So this is a 2024 study, which was recently launched this year, which is 2025. So it basically looks at the current maybe 2 to 3 years. And of course, you are referring to men being in leadership. And if we had to look at which year or when did these men get an education, you would find that it would take you back to a time when we were advocating for the girl child, and we wanted the girl child to get an education because there wasn't women in the education system. Now we are seeing a change in that. So this is really showing progress, which one might think it's good, one might think it's bad. But it shows that we have achieved as a country to be able to get the girl child to get that education that they have.
Okay.
Maybe they have not reached the ceiling that we're looking at in terms of women in leadership in the different corporate world or within the different government departments. But what we're seeing now, early signs of maybe the boy child now being neglected vis-a-vis the girl child.
So essentially what you're saying is we may see progress as far as women empowerment is concerned, but in terms of gender disparity and gender equality, we are seeing a regression.
Let me correct you there. We're seeing a positive results of women being educated. So currently, if we look at the number of girls that are in school and that actually graduate out of the universities, they are more than the boy child numbers. So that means we've progressed in terms of education for the girl child.
Okay.
Yes, and so what we seek and what we need to be looking at is how do we equalize that scale, not for it to tilt one way.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this, and it's because I want us to sort of use words and language that everybody understands. Yes. The difference between, I specifically used women empowerment, and you said, let me correct you, women education, the differences.
Yes, empowerment is broad. You have talked about women in positions in terms of the corporate ladder. You know, empowerment is issues of being able to go and report and make sure that you are safe as a woman. So you might be educated, but it does not mean that you're protected from GBV and other issues that may come. So there is elements to that. That's why I wanted to specifically zoom into the education one, because that's where we're seeing positive results. And it's not that we're seeing positive results at the cost of a boy child, but it's that we need to look at certain elements that we are, as a society, playing that influences or then puts pressure on the boy child not to be able to concentrate and focus specifically on their education.
So I think, yes, we've spent a bit of time now talking about the girl child. Although we can't have conversation about what the boy child needs and what young men need at the exclusion of women, because at the end of the day, we are raising both of these within our families and within societies. Let's just zone in then on the gaps, as you say, exist as far as the boy child is concerned. Your organization deals with young boys and young men, or men in particular, and you reference corporal punishment as per the report. You reference underperformance as per the report. What obtains on the ground, and how do we find ourselves here?
I think we find ourselves here because of just the socialization of the boy child, where we assume that the boy child, because they're energetic, because they want to explore, they want to climb the tree, they want to, they want to touch certain things, and they often get into trouble. And it's also our role as men, or also as women, to be able to say, how do we discipline these boys without necessarily using corporal punishment? So being able to sit down and explain to them, do not do this, these are the results of this, and being able to allow them to explore the world, but explore it in a guided way, which would not come out as offensive or come out as rude or come out as misbehaving. So I think there's a big role in terms of us as men and women to see how we re-socialize and change the ways that we've grown up. I hear a lot of people saying, no, we grew up getting corporal punishment and we're okay. But we need to realize that the world around us is changing. And there is other methods that we can be able to use to discipline our kids without necessarily using corporal punishment.
I think the argument that we grew up in a different, era, we are different generations, and the like, it quite often is talked about. But I'd be curious to find out practically, what is it that within our families, within society, as a nation, we can do to, and I'm going to use the word empowerment, to empower the boy child, to push back on some of these things, that the harmful practices, to push back on whatever it is that we may deem being an impediment to their progression.
I think what is important is for us to be able to treat kids as kids. Let's not say because you're a boy, you should not cry, you should be strong, you are a decision maker. Let's allow them to be kids, let's allow them to cry. The same effort that we make in molding the girl, teaching them how to sit, how to carry themselves, should be done towards the boy child also. Let's teach them how to cook for themselves so that they understand that they can be able to do these things. They don't necessarily need a woman to come and cook for them. They also can be able to support a woman and cook for the woman. So such socializations is needed for us to raise kids in a gender equitable environment where they know that they are capable of doing certain things. And issues of discipline, I'm going to emphasize this to say, let's talk to them more. Let's allow them to talk to us more than using corporal punishment. So let's be able to raise them in that way.
I'm also curious to find out, again, I'm going to reference a conversation offline. You're talking about enrollment in institutions of higher learning, and you gave an example of UB and how we have seen, because of the drop in performance, we see that there's a lot of women or young girls in such institutions. Economically and from a social cohesion perspective, what does this mean, and what sort of then society are we creating as a result of some of these disparities?
Yeah, it means, we need to really dive into it and realize what is happening to the boy child at that particular moment. Are they dropping off school because of issues of drugs? Are they dropping off school because of pressures to provide? Are there other avenues or other things that they think would be preferable for them to do than get an education? But also, this then says we have an educated woman who would be in a relationship with an uneducated woman, and how is that relationship going to play itself? And are they not some of the signs that we see now of GBV, where now the man feels I'm powerless because she has an education or she has a better job than me, and so it brings in that friction where now we then have GBV happening. And so these are some of the things that we need to be looking and analyzing and seeing. Are the GBV cases that are going up also related to what we're seeing?
I think you bring an interesting conversation here about GBV, because one ought to say it doesn't matter what the circumstances. You shouldn't raise your hand, for example. When we start trying to find a correlation, are we not making an excuse, as others would say?
Yeah, you can call it an excuse, but what we're doing here is analyzing the situations and seeing what could cause it. Because for you to solve something, you need to look at what are the causes. So looking at causes, and the causes, if empowerment is a cause, it means then we need to know about it and then educate men to understand, educate women to understand that if I have more financial stability, it does not mean I need to look down upon my partner as a man who does not have. And the same thing with the men. We, as the organization, need to educate the men to say, you can be in a relationship with a woman that has a better education and has a better salary than you, and you can still be able to support them without necessarily using violence.
And so we find ourselves here with a highly empowered young girl and a less empowered young man. Have we understood gender equality for what it is as a society, as a nation?
It's a question that we want to forever ask and engage on, because it's different with different people. We would feel that at community level, maybe people now understand it as being an educated woman means that you are more empowered. But in reality is that the person that you are with, the society that you are with, how do they view that? And you yourself, do you feel that because I am more educated, therefore I do not deserve to have somebody who can love me? I always use an example of saying, if a family member would see a man that maybe you are married to and is now doing the cleaning and taking care of the kids, while you as a female, you're going to work. Some people will say, no, you've given a love portion to this man. He's not man enough. So it gives us that question to say, are we ready for gender equality? Are we able to accept it? When we see it play itself, is it an acceptable scenario within the family? You know, so it's questions that we'll continue to ask and hope with time people can be able to understand.
I'm asking you this question deliberately because we've got I would say the African way. We've got the Botswana way, and I remember back in school we had the African context of what it meant to have human rights, and the Western notion of what human rights meant. And how do we then find a balance of who we are as a people and understanding the division of roles within our families, within our communities and society, vis-a-vis what we have imported as by virtue of being part of a global community, by virtue of globalization, by virtue of signing all of these conventions.
I hear what you're saying. And it's a debate that we would need to ask, because if we had not adopted certain cultures, I would not be sitting here at an interview and talking to you on a television that is adopted. So all of our things, our culture is rich. And we need to understand that there's certain things within our culture that we can be able to adopt that would allow us to go forward. And there's certain things that might be far-fetched that we cannot be able to implement in the modern world. So things are forever changing, and we need to change with the times. But I want to be very clear to say, even when we look at within our culture, we should be able to see that there's certain practices that were there, that are rich, that are also part of human rights. And it's not like in our culture, we didn't have anything that has human rights in it. It was a society that would raise to protect women, raise to protect children, raise to protect also men. Maybe it was left for interpretation, and some people would interpret it differently.
Okay. Mr. Lunga, you've been on this journey for quite some time, advocating for men and boys in this conversation of gender equality. I'm curious to find out, what do you find has worked, if it has, in other countries or in other societies? What do we still need to do, either from a policy perspective or how we just relate as human beings to really ensure that we find some sort of equilibrium in how we raise our children, in how we empower our children?
I think we all have a role to play, both men and women, to reflect and ask ourselves if how we are raising our children in the modern world, in the direction that we see that they're going. What is our role, from communication to the education system, to also ensuring that they have equal opportunities at an early age, for them to know that the fact that I'm female or the fact that I'm male does not mean that I cannot do certain things. So I think it's really about us as a society, us as a family structure, saying, we want to be intentional about changing certain things that we see, changing how we socialize the boy child, changing how we socialize the girl child, and know that when we raise them, we're raising them to live together, and therefore let's raise them in an equal world where they see how I treat my partner to be an example of how they would also want to have their relationship with their partners.
Thank you so much, Mr. Desmond Lunga. He is the founder of Men and Boys for Gender Equality, speaking to us about some of the findings from the World Bank report titled Trends and Opportunities to Advance Gender Equality in Botswana. Of course, speaking about it is our individual roles as people within a society, within a community, a nation, to ensure that when we raise our children, we raise them as exactly that, children with equal rights and equal opportunities to create a better world.
Government, private sector, academia, health professionals, development partners, educators, and volunteers united